Well, good evening.
Alan is the founder, author of a new iPad app that was released yesterday called Bethlehem The Beginning. And it's really an incredible story about how Alan and I met. I was at a networking function
Right.
in the Tampa Bay area one night, and I saw him there, and we started chatting, and I said to him, "You look like a Beatle." and he does. He has this great hair, and he's a musician, and we got to talking further, and through that process, he had shared with me a story about an audiobook that he had, a musical audiobook that had all kinds of information. It was basically the story of the birth of Jesus as told through the eyes of the animals.
That's right.
And it was called The Oft-Told Story and at that time. And then fast forward, we got to talking about how Alan wanted to basically take this audiobook and turn it into a possible animated film.
Right.
And at that point in time, well, if you want to continue on there, I know you were chatting with a friend of yours about that particular thing about turning it into a film, and you discovered the iPad, so to speak.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting scenario. Many years ago, when we first developed this story, my mother and I wrote this, by the way, back about 2001. But over the years, I knew that it ultimately needed to be an animated film, just because of the format. I mean, you have animated characters, all animals. It's just got to be an animated film. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I hired an agent out of California, and I really started to pursue the avenues involved in getting funding and finding my way through the film industry. What I found was that living in St. Petersburg, Florida was a little bit of a disadvantage because there aren't too many film people over here. And so it languished for a while, just because of the fact that it just seemed such a daunting experience, you know. Suffice it to say that the story itself, though, lived on the musical stage. So for 5 or 6 years, we produced it as a musical performance and sort of kept the whole energy alive and kept things moving along. And
you're performing this actually this year, too, in the local area, in the Tampa Bay area.
In St. Pete at First Unity Church, yeah. December 17th and 18th, by the way. So I was sitting in Wing's bookstore in St. Petersburg and having a cup of coffee with a gentleman friend of mine that has a production studio. And I was bemoaning the fact that just to do a trailer for an animated film was between a minimum $50,000, possibly $100,000 to do like 60 seconds or so. And he said, well, you know, maybe we could do something on a much smaller scale, more animatic as opposed to animation.
And what's the difference for our listeners between animatic and animation?
Well, if you recall, as a small child, maybe watching all the Japanese animated films on Saturday morning, where the mouths move and then they just kind of move the figure back and forth on the page.
Right.
That's
sort
animatic.
Sort of like South Park.
Sort of like South Park.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's animatic.
So I remember when you first said that term to me, I didn't know what that meant. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what that means. And he said, well, maybe we could do something similar and or just come up with some way of creating a little trailer or a demo that would be representative enough where you could go out in the marketplace and maybe get some investors. So I said, sure, fine, let's do that. And we set up a meeting. He had an illustrator friend that he thought was going to be qualified enough to take all the illustrations that we had already from my primary illustrator. And in that first meeting, it was so interesting. This guy walked in the door. I'd never met him before, and we had this interesting conversation. And he said, did you happen to see this new Apple iPad yet? And I said, no. I think it was out in the marketplace maybe 2 months, if that. And he said, this is interesting. He said, because it does all these interesting new things. I mean, it creates multimedia, it's internet access, et cetera, et cetera. He said, there's a possibility that this could be a vehicle for this. So we ran out and grabbed an iPad and we started. He said, I want you to take a look at this Alice in Wonderland app that's on here. And that app just rang the bell for me. And what I realized was if you can do something that interesting on the iPad, then maybe this is a vehicle that would work for us.
Sure, absolutely.
So that started the ball rolling. And unfortunately, those two guys just didn't pick up the ball and run with it, and it didn't happen for them. And I guess about 2 months later, you and I had lunch in St. Pete, and I mentioned this to you, and you said, well, maybe I could find an app or iPod or iPad developer, and the rest
Let's put
is
it
history.
together. And we're talking with Alan Armstrong, who just had his brand new Bethlehem The Beginning iPad app released yesterday. And at that point in the story, what had happened is I had used Facebook to do lots of different things. In fact, that's how I met Russ, was through Facebook, and then ended up talking with some fellow cigar connoisseurs and running into him. So on Facebook, I put that I was looking for iPhone and iPad and Droid app developers, and a childhood friend of mine who I used to play Army Guys with in the backyard, Brad Jagir, and he was working for a company, DM Interactive in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He reached out to me and he said, hey, the company that I work with, we have a bunch of programmers, and we'd love to take a look at this.
Right.
And I'll let you continue with the story there, Alan, because this is a fun part. They flew down.
Well, you know, I have to say that from the beginning, when my mother and I first got the concept, every step of the way, the right people always showed up. When I first had the idea for this, and I did the first draft of the story in the first chapter, I showed it to a reverend friend of mine, and he said, "You need to meet this other gentleman by the name of Fred Johnson." Now, Fred Johnson is a local jazz artist, and has been very prominent here in the Bay Area for a long time. And I said, "Oh, I know who he is. I've never met him." He said, "I think he'd be interested, or you should at least speak with him, and he could maybe help you." So I called Fred and got him on the phone and gave him a little, 30-second sales pitch about what I'm doing. We agreed to meet in the parking lot of the church. He met me. I put my little demo CD in my CD player, and after he heard the first, 5 minutes or so, he looked at me and he said, "I got to do this."
Wow.
He said, "I'm in."
Sounds like divine intervention, if you ask me.
All the way down the line.
Yeah.
So from that, we hired 18 people to do all the voiceovers for the audiobook, and that took about a year and a half to produce, and off we went. Then we did musical productions of it, and it's just been an amazing trip.
Well, the soundtrack is amazing, and I know as part of the iPad app itself, it's one of the only iPad apps that's in the store that has musical soundtrack embedded in it, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Which I think really makes it very unique.
Well, this is the beauty of the iPad vehicle, is that if you take an ebook and you go to any other medium, you can't impregnate it with music. You can't.
Right, like on a Kindle, for example.
No, it's not possible.
Right.
So I gave that whole idea up a long time ago. I was like, it's not worth it. If I can't do a storybook with a CD or with the music as an integral part of it, because when we started taking the music and looking at it and how it actually worked in the story, we made sure, like, for example, some of the songs we used that were public domain, like Hark the Herald Angels Sing, for example, all the lyrics support the dialogue and the storyline. So we were very, very careful to do that. And then when we got to parts that needed a song, well, my mom and I just wrote one. Simple as that.
And how many original songs that you've created, Alan, that you and your mom have created, are part of this iPad app?
I think that last count is 9
Yeah.
out of like 27 songs.
And some of those songs you can actually find on YouTube, for example.
Yes.
You have a YouTube channel.
We do, Bethlehem iPad, and we've put 2 of them up. One is called A Little Child, and this is sung by the Shepherd Boy, and the other is called On the Road to Bethlehem, which is sort of an amalgamation of O Little Town of Bethlehem and this one of the wacky camels called Jasmina.
We love Jasmina. She even has her own ringtone, doesn't she?
She does.
On the website.
On the website, yeah.
Yeah.
So she puts her own flavor to On the Road to Bethlehem, and it's kind of fun.
Well, I know that I've enjoyed the process that we had. We were interviewing a few different programmers to basically develop this product, develop the iPad app, and then we came across, like I said, my friend who found me through Facebook, reunited with him, and he and the CEO of the company flew down here to Tampa to meet with us at my office,
amazing.
And it was really great how, like you said, it's all come together.
Yeah.
And we're really thankful for those gentlemen and the whole crew back there.
They're
in
absolutely
Green Bay.
first class. They're brilliant, and that's once again the power of this thing. It's just been, as you said, almost divinely inspired every step of the way, and we're not done.
We're not done. No.
We're
What's in the future
on the
for
road to
Bethlehem
an
The Beginning?
animated film.
Yes, on the road. Exactly. If people wanted to get more information about it, if they don't have an iPad and just want to check it out, you have a website that's available. That
We do.
is-
It's called BethlehemTheBeginning.com.
And what might you find on that website? What are some other things besides the information about the iPad app?
Well, once again, we have free wallpapers. We have free ringtones. In a couple of days, we're going to put up a free advent calendar, which is very clever. And you can find bios and histories of each of the characters on there, which is kind of interesting as to who the camels are and who Mr. Mouse, where he came from. And
Well, I like the Jasmina ringtone. It's like, get the phone, girlfriend, get the phone. Yes, it's pretty
It's
clever.
cute.
It's pretty
It's
cute.
cute.
Well, talking about the iPad app, I know you have the iPad here in the studio with us. We're going to take a commercial break here shortly, but when we come back, I want you to tell more a little bit about what the some of the special surprises that you'll be able to find for
Sure.
the children, and then also too, who would want to buy this particular iPad app. So
got it.
stay with us. We've been interviewing Alan Armstrong from Bethlehem The Beginning iPad app, and stay with the Foxy Forum. We'll be right back.